This podcast is hardly focused.
Ah, the French.
It was a little refreshing to see a game come out that's only $40. And the game is called Concord.
Like Bad Fur Day?
No, like the city in New Hampshire.
Oh, Concord.
Or if you will, that's how you know I'm from Massachusetts. Everyone's probably calling it Concord, and I'm like, Concord.
I'm just having fun.
No, that's probably it. There's probably a lot of people out there like, oh yeah, Concord. This game Concord. I'm like, Concord, kid.
Concord.
Yeah, there's another game. It's called Somerville. No, Somerville. Yeah, I played Somerville. I'm not joking.
All of it.
Yeah, I'm not joking. There's a game called Somerville. Now I thought when I first heard of, and I'm going to call it disclaimer.
It's a fine.
It's
to do it. Say yeah, I'm not.
It's going to be Concord. But when I heard about this game, the first time I heard about it, I just thought I'm like, okay, there's this I guess phase now where seemingly good games or interesting games are named after cities. There was a really good one, a short game, but a very good one that came out a few years ago called Tacoma. And then there's Somerville, like I just mentioned, and then now we have Concord. Like, these are all cities, man. These are all like cities in the U.S. So didn't really know anything about it other than that. Just when I see the name Concord, I think of these other similarly titled games I can speak. So Concord comes out 14 days ago. 14 days ago. Very specific that I say 14 days ago. Because it's now, I'll preface by saying it's a Concord. What is Concord? Nate, have you heard anything about this game?
No.
Okay. It's a live service game. It's a multiplayer 5 versus 5 shooter. Came out on PlayStation 5. It came out on PC. It was released 14 days ago on August 23rd. Always online, one of those games.
An Overwatch kind of thing?
Yeah. Pretty much Overwatch.
Okay.
Developed by, I believe, Firewalk Studios.
The opposing Blizzard.
Yeah.
What they did there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it came with a price tag too. Now, when Overwatch came out, like, there was a price tag. Team Fortress 2, I actually paid for Team Fortress 2. I think twice, because I bought the orange box. That was in it. And then I actually bought Team Fortress 2 on Steam. And like a month later, it went free to play. And then Overwatch.
That's what they do.
Yeah, Overwatch is now free to play. So, but Concord, now they're putting a $40 price tag on it. Well, Concord comes out on the 23rd. And already, like, the pre-release hype is not really there because I guess when the trailer came out for the game, it was not well received. It was actually made fun of. And it was also very well known that the game had been in development for a long time. Take a guess, Nate, how long this game was in development for.
4 years?
Double that.
No, really?
8 years this game was in development.
That's okay.
8 fucking
How does
years.
that work? Because like technology is it's like changing all the time. So is that what causes it? Or is it like they work on it for a year and they're like, oh shit, now there's a new system and we gotta make it towards that? Or is it just like it's just slow?
It's a combination of factors. The evolving technology is going to play a big role in it. The ever-changing landscape of the games industry, the demand. I mean, this is like Suicide Squad, what WB put out that I'm going to make fun of until probably until I die, just this game. And just knowing my insider knowledge, that game was in development for probably about as long as Concord was, but that's because the development restarted so many times. You get so far into it, and then all of a sudden you'd have to pivot because now we have to retool the core of the game. And if it starts off as a single player game and turns into a live service game, well, now you're gonna have to redo everything you just did.
Mhm.
You gotta retool the story. You gotta retool the way the characters play. Now we really got to work on balancing. It's a whole thing, and one change is gonna just not only negate X amount of work you've put into it, but now it just adds Y months of additional work, development time. That's why half the time these games don't get release dates. Suicide Squad, I think it was supposed to come out in 2021. And again, it got delayed by 3 years. So Concord finally comes out. And here's the thing about like Suicide Squad and like games like this. There's been a lot of games that have come out, not just multiplayer games, but also single player games where like when they come out, the player base is usually pretty high. Like, and it's usually just out of interest. And then it drops off.
Trickles off, yeah.
It drops off soon afterwards. Like, people think that this game Anthem that came out several years ago was a mess just because it had a really rocky development cycle, and when it finally came out, it was just very middling. But the game, like, I believe it's still, like, the servers are still up, so you can still play it. But it took, I think, maybe about a year or two before the developer, before BioWare said, yeah, we had a roadmap for this game planned out, and we're just not going to do anything with it. we're just going to abandon the project. And that's the thing, if you're unfamiliar with the live service games, they have roadmaps. It's to keep the game going for as long as it possibly can go. So I'm getting to is these games all typically will have somewhat of a player base, concurrent players. And I will say at one point, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this here on air, but I'll say at one point, Suicide Squad's player base was so low, like their concurrent number of players, it was so low. This podcast had more listeners than that game had players.
Well, that's not too crazy considering the millions of people
Right.
listening to it.
So 14 days. August 23rd is when this game Concord launched on PC and PlayStation 5. On September 6th, so the day after this episode goes live, Concord will be shut down.
Wow, that was fast.
That was incredibly fast. There are live service games that do get shut down shortly after they launch, but it can take a while. My former employer put out a game called Infinite Crisis that was in an open beta phase for, I think, about 2 years. I think, if I remember correctly, the open beta started in 2013. So like there were people who could play, but like you needed like an invite code, and then eventually they opened it up so you could download, but the game wasn't officially released. When they put the game on Steam, they considered that its official launch. 6 months later, it gets shut down, and it's a black mark for the company, and it has gone down in the annals of the video game, the history of video games as an embarrassment because it was part of the MOBA craze and the multiplayer online battle arena, and it just didn't take off. But again, these games usually are live for a while before they get shut down because no one's playing them or they're just not raking in money. For a game to get shut down 14 days after going live,
That's wild.
that is an absolute fucking...
Yeah.
Like, there's no way around that. Like, we talked about a game called The Day Before, which was launched and then was like shut down after like 4 days. But that was by, if I remember correctly, it was like a Russian developer, like a Ukrainian developer. And it just lifted, like it stole a bunch of assets. Like the game, it was a scam to begin with. Like instances like that are scams.
Yeah.
This was a first party studio, so directly under Sony, that was developing this as a AAA title for 8 years, only to be shut down
14
after 14 days. Now, Nate, $40 this game costs. That means people spent money to buy a game that they only got to enjoy of upwards of 14 days. Everyone who bought the game is eligible for a refund. The director of the game, Ryan Ellis, he posted in a PlayStation blog post. Because again, remember the studio, it's a Sony Games studio. Ryan Ellis says, while we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately and will begin to offer a full refund to all gamers who purchase the game on PS5 and PC. If you purchased the game from the PlayStation Store, a refund will be issued to your original payment method, blah, blah, blah. Also, they mention the best path ahead. I guess insinuating that they want to relaunch the game at some point. Probably is a free-to-play game laden with microtransactions, but trying to make it seem like, hey, we're not actually shutting the game down entirely. Like, it just wasn't ready yet. We took it out of the oven too soon.
Like they usually do.
But why? Why does this have to happen? Why is this a thing that happens all too often now? Like,
Rushing?
I don't know if it's a deadline.
You can't
thing.
really say rushing after 8 years, but
unless like you're in danger of losing like, funding or whatever as a studio. Like if you're a Sony studio, then like does Sony then the higher ups at Sony say, hey, we need to put this out immediately or we're gonna kick you guys to the curb? Because I believe that was the controversy with No Man's Sky, which that game is almost 10 years old now. And that game had a complete reversal from when it launched. And effectively it launched unfinished. And it's because they were told to get it out the gate. And that studio did it. They did it right. Every year they put out a major content update that just builds upon the game. It now has everything that was promised in it and more. And all of it has been free. And now that studio is once again held in high regard, and it's it's a success story. But it's the fact of the matter is, this is just how it happens. It just doesn't.
I guess you got to try to profit. It's like being a musician and you work really fucking hard on an album, and you want to charge $20 for that album, and then eventually no one's really buying it, so you just kind of make it $10, and then a few years have gone by and you just have a pile of them and you're just handing them out.
Right. Which, I mean, for the exposure, maybe that's better. And then try to make your money elsewhere, like playing shows or busking even. Do that.
I feel like video games always had this trend of like they have a good period of like games and then they just have like, oh, anybody can make anything, and then it becomes shit, and the market is just flooded with shit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, uh-oh, and then somebody has to come around and make something new. And I feel like maybe that's where but the thing that drives me, like the thing I can't understand, and I'm sure gamers out there know it way more than me, is it would seem like they would benefit by making these games like dual online and offline.
Yeah.
Because it's like once you don't have the network of players, online you don't really get anything from it and you have to shut it down. But if you had like a single player mode, like there's still like it's still a game. Like once upon a time I had this game called Hellgate London. I don't know if you remember that.
I've heard of it.
But it was like a bunch of people quit Blizzard and decided to make a game, and it was supposed to be like the next thing. And it was online. And it was like because it had limited level design and it story wasn't great. But anyway, it was still a game. Like you could still play it. And then they had this online part where other people are there, but I never played with other people.
Yeah.
Like I just played with like my cousin and Zach. Um, so if the game is now offline, they've since pulled it, and it strikes me as weird that there there I have a game that doesn't work because the whole purpose of it was to connect online and play with other people, but I never did that.
Yeah. I know that
So it's,
the games are designed like from a code standpoint, technical standpoint, to be played online, and like you can't to have like an offline version, a single player version is like a whole different code structure.
yeah,
There's a game that Microsoft in Bethesda released, I think last year. It's called Redfall, and I think Arcane, one of the Arcane studios, developed it, and there was a lot of hype behind it. And it was an online only game. Well, it came out, and even being on Game Pass day one didn't help it.
yeah,
And the game is still online, but they've ceased, like not even a year later, the studio ceased development on it because the game was just not only poorly received, but nobody was playing it. But one of the last things that they did was they were saying like, well, we do want to put an offline mode in this game. Well, they finally did as part of the last update. So like, yeah, you can still play it,
yeah.
and
I
you can
mean,
enjoy
that's
it.
that's what I'm saying. And like, I don't get me wrong, I understand that playing with friends is way better. I mean, we're at the age of loneliness where people are putting on YouTube videos on the background just to feel like there are more people. And that's why podcasts are also doing real great because people are lonelier than they've ever been. So they want to feel like there are people around them at all times.
Yeah.
Um, so I get the appeal of work of playing online. I love playing with friends. Like I played Diablo for years, Diablo 2 with like all my buddies. But Diablo 2 was also fine with just me playing it.
Mm-hmm.
I was fine going around and doing all the shit myself.
Yeah, that's how I play Diablo. And I think I played with Fro once. And like, I played the fuck out of Overwatch before,
Yeah. And
2
I'm
came
saying like
out. But even then, I'm
e-
very like online games. I'm so selective about that shit.
I played Unreal Tournament
Oh hell
and
yeah.
that was an online game, but what I like to do is I like to play against like a bunch of bots and set them to like hard.
Oh yeah. And then you
Because
have
to me, like it's not about like being amazing at a game, it's just playing the game. So I play like capture the flag and you know, it wouldn't be a sweep because it was hard. I would set my teammates to be easy and then them be hard because of course you want like a little bit of challenge.
and you
But
want those giblets too.
that was still like that's still a thing that I did. And also there was a whole part of Unreal Tournament where people just made levels and you had to see how fast you could go through them. They were called bunny tracks,
Okay.
and they were like obstacle courses where they would build like things that push the game to the limits. Like if you like strafe, like you could launch yourself off of like a corner if you hit it just right
Mm-hmm.
and get higher air, kind of like a rocket jump. Um, but just by double tapping, you just do this quick move and you can jump on. I was never good at it, but it was fun to like try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like
That's
and try to get to the end of the course. And that was you weren't playing against anybody and it was perfectly fine. Like I just don't I understand that multiplayer is so much better, but it's so strange to me that you put it all into the concept of this online world and if that online world doesn't like strive, then
mhm.
it's gone. And then you have an unplayable game. Like even like Overwatch, even Overwatch could have its aspect of you play it by yourself.
I
Like
think
you don't, but like it could. Like you could have a team of AI playing against your team of AI and you're the guy and you're trying and that's a way that you can learn all the characters or sorry, heroes. Um,
I think
and
they were trying
yeah.
to with Overwatch 2. They were trying to put out a PvE mode, player versus environment, and I think it's been canceled effectively. Like they just like again, it goes back to the technical side of things. This with Concord, this will be I think officially the biggest embarrassment in probably the history of video games. I also think that this could be a kamikaze effort on Sony's part, because Sony wanted to get into the live service business. So that first they acquired Bungie, who made Halo, and now they're doing Destiny. And Destiny isn't doing well. So Sony's rethinking their investment. They also laid off a ton of people recently. And then Naughty Dog was making a Last of Us live service game. And in Naughty Dog, they had the... I think Naughty Dog was able to leverage their power to have the plug pulled on this project, because they said, we like making single-player games. And having a live service game will ruin that for us. So we're not doing that. Case in point, Rockstar Games, Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, when are we getting that next year? Who the hell knows? Because Grand Theft Auto Online's been doing great for almost 15 years. 15 years. I'm sorry, 12. 11 years. If you want to be pedantic. But
Shallow and pedantic.
I think it's a kamikaze effort by Sony, realizing that maybe live service games aren't their future. So they set up Firewalk to be a scapegoat and release something that they knew was going to tank right out the gate, so they could then shut it down and say to the world, hey, you know what's not good? Live service games. We don't need these. We do not. We don't need any of them. We don't need any more. Let the ones that are running, that have been running, that have been successful, continue to be successful. And let them just fizzle out. Meanwhile, WB just sitting back and saying, you guys release your shitty live service multiplayer shooter and no one's playing it, so you shut it down. Do what we did. Release it, have nobody play it, and then just lay off your entire studio. Because fuck them, right? That's the David Zaslav way.